Holy festivities! It's actually been a long time since I've actually sat down to my own desk to build something, and it may not seem that long when, you know, with videos going up and stuff like that, but it's been an entire week and a day since I've actually been able to sit down, build something, and review it properly. So, yeah. I don't have a huge amount of time today because of everything and all that, so this ride here is something pretty much we kind of saw already, just in a slightly different format. This right here is a variant of the Nightfall that we would have seen before, which of course was the real Raven's mech from the awesome Armored Core VI, but as for you, pseudo-Raven, this is what you started off with. So this right here is the basic Armored Core VI mech, and that does make it, well, the cheapest one of the entire lot, making this a nice entry point into the line. But yeah, what more can I really say about it? The box looks nice. Nightfall was fantastic, so I expect this to be fantastic too. And let's get it built, reviewed, and see what it's like. But yeah, as always, this was sent on to me by those awesome people over at HobbyLink Japan, so I will throw a link to this down there in the description. But yeah, let's get to it. Alright, so on getting this out of the box, I expect to see a lot of what we saw before inside of the Nightfall box. Again, if you want to see that video, that'll be a lot more fully fleshed out than this one right here will be. So instead of that kind of beigey-ish color, what we've got in here is gray, which does look very, very cool. The weapon this time around is actually on the runner with the armor. That's interesting. And we do have a manual, as usual. Alright, so first off, taking a quick look at the manual right here. The same Armored Core 30-minute missions manual we've seen before, so breakdown of the various body parts, so that's head, torso, arms, and legs. Then here we've got the weapons that are included, well, the weapons and equipment. There is just the one weapon, which is the Curtis, and there's the info on the booster. Around the back, this is a sold separately weapon set, which will pretty much give you the Nightfall loadout on this particular kit, so it is just that, well, that kit split in two. 8 runners in this kit. We do have a little bit of a logo for using with them, and when it comes to the build, these are very, very simple with absolutely phenomenal payoff. So as far as I can see here, this is exactly the same kit as we would have seen before, but there could be a couple of differences, but I'm not quite sure. But the colors are a little bit different. The inner frame may be the same, but the armored parts there, well, that's completely different. It's now in a very neutral gray as opposed to the kind of beigey color we would have seen before. And one of the runners has been extended to include the weapon, so the odd aspect about this is that means the weapon included in here is in a light gray as opposed to the dark gray that every other weapon is and seems to, well, will be for these particular kits. So it does set it apart to some degree, but I think it's just a bit of a cost-saving measure to pop it on the same runner. Anyway, let's get building. Alright, so first off, jumping right on into the legs. Now, these say 30-minute missions on the box, but they have a lot more in common with Bandai's, well, flagship plastic model mecha line of model mecha model flagship mechas, which of course is Gunpla. This kit right here pretty much has an entire inner frame, especially down here in its legs. Now that's not the same when it comes to Steel Haze. That's a very different styled mecha model kit just because of how kind of narrow and lightweight the overall design is. But the Orbiter here and Nightfall, incredibly detailed, even on the inside. This right here is the joint for the ankle, so it is a ball joint into a cup, and that then gives us access to another ball joint. Some thrusters then in that nice inner frame gray that will be coming out through the armor right there. The armor then starts to build up on top of that. Now I will mention both the right and the left legs are exactly the same at this point of the build, so you can build both at exactly the same time. They only deviate a little bit towards the end. The armor sections that attach onto its mecha calves, these are dual layered, so that's nice and thick. Make sure those are pushed together, and that pops on. Simple as that right there. So next up, we've got some floating armor for around the ankle area. Now these little sections right here attach in very nicely. This is a really cool design. These just pop in from underneath just like so. So you got the rear of the armor as well as these little circular aspects which do hold it on with pressure. The bottom part then pops on underneath and holds everything in place. And those are the points right there that this holds on then via that little bit of a squeeze. Again, a very nice yet simple design. Next up then is the feet. Now I will say there is no actual articulation in the feet themselves, which is a little bit on the sad side. So you're just kind of just building up all of the sides. That is the left, the right, the back, and then the front. So yeah, no articulation in the feet, which is always a bit of a big boo from me. But hey, I'm not sure if they actually do have moving feet in the game or not. It's not really something I paid too much attention to. Anyway, there we go. This is pretty much the exact same build for both the left and the right leg. And what we do next is what deviates them from each other. This is the upper leg armor. The joint just slots into it just like so. That's really the only part that, well, it is actually. I was going to say isn't part of the inner frame, but technically it is. The front section then sandwiches on from the front like that. And lastly, then we just have a couple of detailed parts for attaching on. That's a little bit of a round section on the left and right, a thruster in the front, and a final bit of armor. And then this is what we get from a leg. So we do have a little bit of movement down here, which does involve that nice bit of floating armor. There's the side to side, so not really as crazy as you'd get from Bandai's Gunpla. There is the bend at the knee, so this part does shift a little bit because it's on a central aspect. Overall, nice, simple, but effective. So now jumping on down to the waist, and this is incredibly simple to build. So you just pop this little section in here, followed by this part up top. Actually, you were meant to do it the other way around, but it still worked. The hip joints on the insides are ball joints, just like we would have seen, or at least seen similar to on Steel Haze, but these then pop on top to give us the usual kind of 30-minute missions, 3mm leg attachment. But this does move nicely, just like so. And I suppose not really, well, yeah, the usual 3mm attachment for a 30-minute missions. Some armor now into the mix. We've got a little gray section that's built out of two identical parts that then slots down into that. The part we just built attaches then into it just like so. A little bit of armor for around on the back like that. And then this attaches onto the front just like that. So yeah, nothing actually happens down on the waist. These parts can slightly move, but that's about it. But besides that, it's just for these to attach on. No gimmicks. No hatches, just simple and to the point. Alright now, so moving up to the body, once again we've got a lot of frame running up through this, giving it that nice mechanical feel of being actually machinery on the inside and functional armor on the outside. This part then pops up here, both being the neck as well as the color separation for this gray section here. But if you were hoping for a full inner frame, this is not connected to that up there, so it is a little bit hollow towards the center of the actual body. Got some nice gray to layer up here, and I have to say there's a lot of nice kind of contrast and layering, even though this kit is essentially just made out of two colors. Yeah, it's just two, dark gray and light gray, but it just works out so well. Layering another small piece of gray onto the side. Front nose armor section slots on like that, giving that elongated, awesome armored core look. Rear section finishing it off back here. Again, the layering is extremely nice, even just the kind of greebly aspects there. Next, we've got that sensor or camera section that's on the front of the chest. Two pieces there, and that then pops into the front just like that. Next up then, we build some asymmetrical detail into either side of the body, which does break it up a little bit past what we've been seeing so far. Then we have to build some aspects which the arms will attach into. These are two layers with some detail in the front, bottom, and the back, and both of these again are a little bit asymmetrical because one of them has a big antenna section sticking right out of the top of it. Once these are complete, they just pop on like that, and then like that, and there is the torso complete. Again, no moving parts, and everything is just static. All the layering we've been doing is just to kind of bring out various little details all over the place, and once again, exactly the same as what we would have seen on Nightfall, just in a different color, and a slightly different color at that. The sections that I'm building up right now is exactly the same for both arms, so once again, you can build both of these at the same time. I just went ahead and built one already, so this is what it's going to look like when it's finished with its ridiculously long wrist, which is awesome. A lot of the parts, as you can see on here, are just two parts, both sides of it, and this is it when it comes to the shoulder joint. Overall, these designs are quite simple, so this just pops on in like that. There is your elbow joint. Even both of the forearms are exactly the same up till a point, so you attach that bit in there for the wrist. This long section then goes in at the back, and this does color separate very nicely out the side there and up on top. And then the elbow attaches on. Whoa, you get back in there, but yeah, the elbow attaches into the central aspect of this. Unique design. So it's from here on that the two arms deviate. Now, I thought it was kind of interesting that we do actually have the attachment point on here for the pile bunker, but I keep forgetting that all of these Armored Core 6 mechs can only use melee weapons on their left arm. So I assume this isn't specifically just for the pile bunker, but for any melee weapon you want to attach on. The hands are simple, so back onto a hand like so, attaches in like that. Next up then is the shoulders. These are the mirror image of each other, so they are slightly different, but pretty much the same. Again, just mirror image. Again, the same sort of build up of gray parts onto lighter gray parts, and it all builds up very, very simply with some very nice detail. Now the arm I'm building right here, this is the left arm, so this one is slightly more detailed than the right, like I mentioned, because of the melee weapon attachment point. So these are C-clip shoulders. Thankfully, it is just the armor that is C-clipped on, not the actual shoulder joint. This segment, which attaches on right here, is what makes both arms different from each other. So that's where your melee weapon will attach, none included. This little bit of armor pops around back here. And then these arms are ball joint attachment up into this shoulder section here. So that is one, and there is number two. So you can really see the orbiter coming together. So all we've left now is the head unit as well as that rifle. Onto the head now, and this is, well, with the rifle, what truly makes this kit different to the Nightfall we would have seen before. Now look how small that piece right there is. I am not risking losing that, so I'm actually leaving it on the runner while attaching it into the part it's going to be attaching into. I would much prefer to be picking up a whole runner off the ground than that tiny, tiny little piece. And then, and only then, is when I'm going to nip that out. Because yeah, that tiny little bit is quite the loss risk. So yeah, I thought this head was just going to be almost, well, just a couple of pieces. It is more than I actually thought it would be. So it builds up quite nicely again. Just like we've seen from the rest of these kits, that is what you get. So there is nice gray detailing in underneath. So Bandai not cutting any corners whatsoever. And then the neck pops in like so. And then it attaches up on here just like that. Again, what truly makes this a different, well, slightly different looking variant of the same mech as what we saw at Nightfall. Last up then in here is the rifle. As you can see, it's only two parts, so very simple. So yeah, the assembly of that is as simple as you would expect from two pieces. They just pop together just like so. And we do have that little bit up top, which is for attaching them into the shoulder racks, none of which do come with this kit. However, the arm sections do. So I can remember, I think it was in the, I'm not sure if it was the Nightfall video or the weapon set video, that these aren't included with the weapon set. So having these is very, very, very handy for attaching the shoulder mount sections onto the various armored cores. Okay, so now that we've got it built, there is the 30-minute missions orbiter in all of its glory. So this is it right out of the box, just straight built, nothing extra done. So yeah, just like we've seen from this line so far, this is incredible. And you might be thinking, well, I feel like I've seen that somewhere before. And that is, well, because, as you probably know already, this is just a variant of the 30-minute missions Nightfall. And not much of a variant at that. With this right here being the orbiter we're taking a look at today, and this guy over here being the Nightfall we would have taken a look at a couple of weeks ago, if not a few weeks ago. So as you can see, there isn't really much kind of different between these at all besides the color. Now I will mention I did detail up and add some little bit of battle damage aspects to the Nightfall. If you do want to see the video on that, I did put a whole lot more effort into that particular kit than the one I'm going to be taking a look at today. Panel liner, battle damage, weathering, I even painted some of the red sensor aspects, all of that sort of stuff to make it look a little less plain than it does out of box, because I love the Nightfall. Not that I don't love the orbiter right here, but it is the time of year I'm trying to blast through as many kits as humanly possible, so this one's just getting the straight build treatment. So there is the two of those kits side by side, the Nightfall on the left and the Orbiter on the right. So you can see them right beside each other, and there really isn't a whole lot of kind of differences between the two. First off, of course, there is the color. The Orbiter we're taking a look at today, the one right here in the front, that one is in gray, and around back here, the Nightfall is in a kind of beige color. Again, quite similar, but there is some subtleties to it that are quite a bit different. For example, for the most part on the Orbiter we're taking a look at today, it is dark gray on light gray predominantly when it comes to the overall color scheme. Nightfall does break that up because we've got an almost kind of metallic, kind of brassy color for a lot of these segments right here. The grey aspects like we're seeing on the hand right here, as far as I can tell, are identical. Again, I have top coated it, so it will kind of affect the shade of color slightly, but it does break up those sort of aspects a lot more than we see on the Orbiter. Like on the Orbiter here on the side, it's just grey on grey, but if you slide in the Nightfall, you can actually see that there's 3 completely different colors to the armor, this underside part, and this part up here as well. So there is more to the Nightfall. Also, there's a little bit of side-by-side comparison of the head units on both of them. The one we've got on the Orbiter is definitely a lot simpler, just kind of a boxy look with a little bit of a sensor on the front. There is the front perspective of both. Sorry about the angle, I just kind of turned it based on the angle that I had everything already, just for the sake of kind of brevity. But yeah, as you can see, it's a more simple head, but that's the only thing physically that makes them any different. I will also mention that when it comes to the Nightfall, that kit does have 2 variants of its head as well. So the 2 variants are the one that's on it right now, and just jumping on back to that review, there was the one with the visor section as well. So there is 2 variants, whereas with the Orbiter, there's just the one. So anyway, throwing the Orbiter into a bit of a spin there so you can see everything about it. Again, it's exactly the same as what we saw with the Nightfall. It's physically identical besides the head, but the color scheme is a little bit more subdued. Now, I will throw in something right now that I totally feel should be a thing. I know this is just a basic version based on the first mech you get in the game, and that means it doesn't have much of a loadout, and there's not much to it. Now this I absolutely love. I actually wish you could get a variant like this of every single Armored Core that they're going to release. A grey version with no equipment, or very limited equipment, because this one right here costs about $17, whereas the Nightfall costs $27. So it's $10 cheaper to get this variant. Of course, you do lose out on the equipment. The equipment set that actually comes with the Nightfall is sold separately, and you can get that for about $11. So you're losing out if you do want to buy both of those together, as opposed to buying the Nightfall, it seems. However, if you just want this and another weapon set, that is awesome. And if you want this for just the parts or for painting, that's even better. And if they made a whole bunch of grey ones, you could attach all the parts together and they would insta-match. No need for painting. And that's why I wish Bandai would make every single one of these kits have a cheaper grey variant. So now jumping into the accessories, and here's the Orbiter with absolutely everything that it comes with. And even though it's not a lot, it's definitely not nothing. Once again, we do have stickers. This time it's RAD stickers. We've got 3 different sizes, 6 in total. Then we've got the weapon in here, which is the Curtis. And then we do have the attachment points for attaching racks up on this kit's back. But I will mention nothing does come included to attach onto it, but if you do buy weapon sets, you do need these because they're not included inside of those. So the first weapon, or should I say the only weapon, the only real piece of equipment we have in here is the Curtis. So this is just made out of 2 sections. All of the detail on this is just molded in that light grey plastic. There is the end there, so there is an actual hole in it. And even though it is only made out of 2 parts, there is a lot of nice detail molded into it. Now, comparing it quite quickly with the scudder that came with the Nightfall, the scudder as well is just made out of a couple of parts too, but if you get some nice ink into all the recesses on it, the detail will truly pop. Now, the difference between this and those weapons is this is made out of the light colored plastic, just like the armor of the Orbiter, so it won't really match with all the other kind of weapons that are out there, so that is worth kind of knowing. The rest of these are all in this dark gray, this is in the armor gray. You may like that, you may dislike it, but it is, again, worth knowing. Attaching this on is the usual Bandai wear, the usual 30-minute mission sort of way. That is, you pop off the back armor of the hand just like so, attach the weapon in like that, and then just pop the back of the hand back on. It holds on perfectly, nice and strong. And there is the Orbiter in a bit of a quick pose with that weapon attached, just so you can see what it looks like. Posed up if you want to throw it up on your shelf in some kind of over-the-top kind of way. Also, this does hold on to it quite well. Nothing's going to drop out of position. The only thing that's kind of giving it a bit of a wiggle is the stand that it's on. But besides that, this holds on well, looks great. And even though it is in the same color as the armor, somehow it's catching the light slightly different, giving it a little bit of a lighter kind of look, probably because it's not mixed with any of the gray. Looking good. Lastly, then we do have the 2 shoulder aspects. Now again, there is nothing in this kit for using these with, but if you did get yourself an optional weapon set, you just pop these up onto the shoulder just like that, and then your sole separate optional weapon will just pop up onto it just like so. Now this one is not actually from one of the sets, I just grabbed it off of Steel Haze, but that just gives you an idea of what these arms will do. They just allow the weapons to kind of come up over the shoulders and be stored back just like that. So finally now onto the articulation, the usual mention of the actual stability on these. These are rock solid. You get a little bit of wiggle here and there. Mainly I find with the ball joints in the waist, but besides that, everything holds up perfectly. The three I have, including this, holding up great. The only thing that's not really holding up is my patience, because Bandai, I want more. More of these. Sooner rather than later, because these are just so awesome. Anyway, usual chest pose time. Just like with the Nightfall, this is super easy to pose. Everything just moves absolutely perfectly. Even though it doesn't have the usual kind of mecha humanoid movement to it, it still works out really well. And what you get is so much more than you'd expect from an Armored Core. This is extremely nice posing wise. You can get some really dynamic, heavy looking poses. And what I mean by that is this looks like it has heft, like it's leaning into the poses very nicely, like you would see in a good old Armored Core cutscene. Nice. Extremely nice. If you do want to see more about its articulation, you can check out the full review of Nightfall, because again, this kit right here is physically identical. So anyway, that right there is it for the review. As far as I know, I'm not actually ranking these. Am I ranking these? I'm not sure. If I am, I'm going to throw the ranking up right now, because it would be exactly the same as what we saw with Nightfall. Again, it's the exact same kit with a different head and a different gun. It's $10 cheaper, but you get $10 less of stuff. Well, not really, because you do get one gun, so that is quite impressive. Anyway, these are awesome kits. I cannot recommend them enough. If you want to try one but not spend too much, I highly recommend going for this one. I do love the gray, I do love the look, and for every Armored Core 6 player, this has to be a mecha that takes a special place in your heart, because it's where you start. Anyway, I got mine through Hobby Link Japan. Link is down there in the description. As always, make sure to come back for more mecha reviews, and I should be back tomorrow with some more mecha or Gundam videos. See you then. Once again, I can't finish this video right here without special thanks to the channel members and the patrons over on Patreon, including Simon Paskin, Abraxas, Caleb Engelhart, Joe, RG59061, ShadowWolf179, Van Fawn, and Scotty Thomas.